guys, it's Zara Blue here. I wanted to come on here today and do a video on intrusive thoughts. And so this video was kind of inspired by the fact that today I am not quite feeling like myself because of my intrusive thoughts. And it's one of those things that I've been dealing with for a number of years. And it's one of those things that I've never really gotten used to dealing with, and I deal with it daily, and it can really ruin my day. And I think it's one of those things that people don't talk about enough. And so I'm kind of, I'm sitting here with my cup of tea, and I started a series earlier on last month called Talkies, and I kind of wanted to continue it. So I have a cup of tea and I kind of want to drink my tea and just kind of talk. And so if you hear me, I'm stirring my tea right now, so that's what that sound is. I just want to kind of have a more casual, laid back kind of setup for a specific genre of video. So I want to start making kind of tea talks, or coffee talkies is what I called it last time. And it's just kind of me drinking tea. You can probably hear me drinking the tea, but just it's kind of just a relaxation video. I don't edit my videos a whole bunch, but a little bit less editing. Just kind of just talking and drinking tea, like I'm in the room with you or something, When I said the room, I thought about what is it? You're tearing me apart, Lisa. I'm not funny. But anyways, so yeah, I wanted to do a video on intrusive thoughts today. So to start off, I thought it was best that I kind of define what an intrusive thought actually is. So an intrusive thought is essentially a thought that comes out of absolutely nowhere that has some type of emotional or traumatic weight to it, and that kind of sends this shock through your whole being. And so it's this tidal wave of emotion, or it can be a flashback, or it can be a literal just destructive thought that makes your body have this visceral reaction where it's you may start having an anxiety attack, you may start sweating, you may start just getting really, really angry and huffing and puffing and for no reason. You might just start getting really sad, you might start panicking. A wide variety of things can happen, but it's typically a thought that has a lot of emotional and or traumatic weight, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's almost like a form of an emotional flashback that kind of takes you back to a certain moment or puts you in a certain mind frame that begins to kind of make you have a physical reaction of some sort. And not everybody hyperventilates or has these very overt symptoms. A lot of people just start clenching their fist. I know sometimes I grind my teeth, clench my fist, and I get really tense. And it feels like you're being attacked. It feels I know for me, mine stems specifically from emotional and psychological abuse. And so a lot of mine come in the form of this sort of CPTSD. If you don't know what that is, I can get into it on a different video, but I'm going to kind of keep it short here. But it's these emotional flashbacks that just hit me out of nowhere. And when it happens, there's no controlling it. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to stop it. It just happens. And that's what's scary about it is there's no controlling it. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep my tea sips in the video. Yeah, but anyways, it's one of those things that you can't control and you can't predict. And so when it hits you, it is absolutely like a tidal wave. And for example, you could be walking down the street and you see somebody carrying a jar of mayonnaise for whatever reason. And let's just say you were with somebody who was emotionally abusive, and one day when you were with them, you went to the store and you forgot to buy mayonnaise. And when you got home, they screamed at you, yelled at you, hit you, and told you were stupid and worthless and that you should kill yourself or something like that. And literally you'll see that person walking down the street with a jar of mayonnaise, and maybe this happened 5 years ago, and you immediately flash back to that moment, and your brain starts really just freaking out. And so that's an example of an intrusive thought. Another example, or another thing that intrusive thoughts can do, because intrusive thoughts aren't just these thoughts and flashbacks to events. They can take on personalities. And another thing I want to mention is intrusive thoughts can they have a voice, and it's a voice in your head. And I don't mean it's not an audible voice. At least I can't hear mine. If you can hear yours, I'm so sorry. That must be very, very hard. But typically, and 99% of people who've dealt with abuse deal with this. It's also known as the inner critic. It has a wide variety of names. People who don't deal with abuse typically don't even have this problem, and describing this to them, it sounds wild. But for me, I know I can hear the voice of my abuser in my head. It's a very distinct voice, and several of the people who I've met in my life who have been abusive towards me, I can hear different voices at different times, and these voices tend to be very bossy. So like, for example, as I'm getting ready in the morning and I'm putting on my clothes or I'm washing my face, like there's typically a voice that's like, you're stupid, you're doing that wrong, why are you doing it that way, that's so weird. It's like this like over emotional, like triggered voice that's like very just like, it has this weird need to control and micromanage everything that I do. It feels this need to boss me around or treat me like I'm inept, and I'm not. And so it's this very bossy, conniving, insecure energy that is feeling insecure about itself. And I know who it I had a person in my life who did this to me, where every move I made, they minimized me, and like literally every move, like I could pick up a makeup brush and start putting on makeup and they'd laugh and be like, hey, you're stupid. And it wouldn't make any sense. They'd just be saying it to say it because they were emotionally insecure and they hated themselves. And so, you know, I have a voice that bosses me around. And these are all in my head, of course. There might be another voice or another inner critic who, every time I say something, it might go, liar, 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 or just like, you made that up. And it's like, no, I did it. Like literally, I know I did it. And so it's like a gaslighter. Like, are you sure that happened? Are you sure you're not crazy? That's stupid. You didn't, that never happened to you. You're just dramatic. Or like, you're too sensitive. It's like a gaslighter essentially. And those are just a couple of examples. Or another one that I experience a lot, which kind of connected to the first example with the mayonnaise, is let's just say if I had a classmate who'd said something really derogatory to me or said something really rude to me, I have a lot of issues with blaming myself for things. Somebody could hit me with a car and I'd be like, you know what, that was my fault. I should have known they were going to hit me. I shouldn't have walked across the street. Like, I'm really bad about blaming myself for certain things. And so I do this thing where when something bad happens to me, I'm a very intuitive person, but obviously I'm not psychic. So, you know, if somebody does something to me, like I'll give an example. One time there was this girl and I had a lot of classes with her, and she seemed all right. At the time, I wasn't as wise on how to kind of navigate people and pick friends and avoid toxic people. And she was definitely a toxic person. And so, and kind of just in our acquaintance stages before I got to know her, I noticed that she talked about herself a lot. Like, she was kind of, give me a second here. Ooh, so good. She was kind of self-centered. You know, she seemed to like be that person who thought like depression was trendy and like anxiety was trendy. And she had a really bad centrality complex. She was very privileged. I'll just leave it at that. She was a very privileged person, and she just thought like her mental health was like the only thing that mattered, and everybody else was making up excuses. She even said that at one point to me. And she just kind of was that person who was like, I'm so depressed, my life sucks, I'm so trendy, I smoke cigarettes, yeah. And oh my god. And so she would kind of abuse her mental health and take up way too much space, and only her mental health mattered and nobody else's mental health mattered to her. And so one day, you know, I was hanging around her and she would always say things to me like, you're so positive, you're so this, you're so that. And I wasn't a positive person, but she didn't really care about my life and my trauma or anything about me, because when I share it, she'd get like upset and she'd kind of like ignore me or just talk over me. She was, again, very privileged. That's all I'm gonna say. But one day I think we went out for hookah or something, and I'm not like a smoker or anything, but we went out for hookah, and every once in a while I'll do some hookah. And during our hookah sesh, she just spent all of her time talking about herself. She just spent all of her time just like, she spent all of like our like hookah date. It wasn't a date, but she spent all of our like time talking about herself, talking about her issues. And at one point she was like talking about her depression. And so at that point she had been talking about herself for like 30 minutes straight. And me now, if I hear somebody talking about themselves for that long, I'm out. I will literally be like, so sorry, gotta go. I have better things to do besides listen to you talk yourself up, and I'll leave. But at that time I wasn't that bold. So she was talking about herself, she was talking about her depression, and at some point I interjected, and I was like, and she got offended anytime I interjected, and it was like, dude, it's a conversation, not you're not lecturing me, this isn't your dissertation, homie. But she was like, so I came in and I was like, oh yeah, like I've struggled with my depression too, you know, last semester I had to like pull one of my teachers aside and like I had like a really bad mental breakdown in front of them, because that whole like that semester, I felt like my life was falling apart, and some really hard things happened to me, and I like wasn't almost like I was in a very low functioning state because of my mental health and because of how like sick I was. And I was at a very low, scary point in my life where I wasn't even sure if I wanted to live anymore. And I had just so many mental health issues, to a point where I had to just come to one of my professors and just say, I'm so sorry. Because I had missed a lot of class, but I got an A in that class anyways, because I worked my ass off. And me and that professor are still good friends. But this is like, I'm sidetracking everything. But like, I had told her that I was just like, yeah, I'm dealing with a lot. And I shouldn't have told her that, looking back at it. But I just told her my story and like how I struggled with my mental health. And essentially she looked at me and she was like rolling her eyes at me the whole time. And I was only talking for about a minute. And she goes, oh my God, like, but you're just making up excuses. And in my head, I was like, you just sat here and said that like your cat's hair gives you a panic attack. Do not ever. Like, it was like so weird to see somebody talk about themselves and talk about their mental health. But then when I share mine, I'm making excuses. And it was weird because like, I don't even want to get into it. I'm getting mad just thinking about it. But she said that. And immediately when she said that, I immediately was just like, and she said other things that were so derogatory. And I was immediately like, man, F you, Ara. This is all your fault. You should have known that she was crazy. You should have known this. Why didn't you walk away the minute she started talking about herself? Why did you just sit there and let her gaslight you when you didn't say anything? And my brain started like, and to this day, this happened almost like over a year ago. And to this day, my brain still freaks out. And it's like, dang it, about this specific incident. And this girl, like, even before we went on our little hookah excursion, I thought to myself, why didn't I just dump her then? Like, why did I wait and like hang out with her when I knew for a fact even before we hung out, all she did was talk up her own ass? Like, why did I let it go that far? And I kept blaming myself, and I'd start having these horrible, like a month after that happened, I was having these horrendous, like convulsing, like PTSD flashbacks of like that girl saying that, because that was like so, like, it was triggering for me. It was like, whoa, like, I'm not making up excuses. I'm a hard worker. And so my brain started like doing backflips and was like, fuck you, Ara. You know, you should have known. Like, I'm just trying to keep you safe. And that's another thing. Your brain in these situations, oftentimes, let me not do that, because that's a little bit too reminiscent of Graveyard Girl. But your brain in these situations is oftentimes trying to keep you safe. And so a lot of times when you have really bad intrusive thoughts that are in the form of flashbacks, like, your brain is looking back on the situation and trying to figure out what you could have done differently, because it's trying to keep you safe. And so once it figures that out, like, maybe in my situation, it would have been speaking up for myself, but also utilizing my kind of intuition as a way to avoid these people up front. Like, I saw her problematic behavior and I still chose to like kind of go on a little like girly date with her, and girly date, I'm dead. But it was one of those things where my brain, once that happened, was like beating me over the head, like, Ara, you have to keep yourself safe. Why did you see that she was a toxic person and that she talked about herself a lot, and you still chose to hang out with her? And then when you were hanging out with her, why did you allow her to insult you and you didn't say anything? Like, if we want to stay safe, this is what my brain was saying to me. We want to stay safe, you have to start speaking up for yourself. And how dare you didn't keep us safe? Like, my brain started beating me up about it. And that's the thing with intrusive thoughts, is a lot of it, 99% of intrusive thoughts, at least in my experience, are based in regret and me feeling like I should have done more, or I should have done something, or I should have done something else in a certain situation. And because I feel that regret, my brain is haunting me with it, of what I should have, could have, would have done. And that's what's the most debilitating with intrusive thoughts, is this whole woulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda, dulda, and all the things that your brain wish you had done differently, because ultimately your brain is wired to keep you safe. And so that's kind of how these intrusive thoughts are born, is your brain's essentially trying to keep you safe, and it's beating you over the head with your thoughts. And you have to understand, I said this earlier, but your brain cannot tell the difference between one of these emotional attacks and a real situation happening. So when my brain was replaying the instance of this girl mistreating me and saying what she said to me, it couldn't distinguish between her saying it in the moment and my brain reacting reacting or recreating the situation, because the reaction viscerally, and the word visceral means like within your body, within your viscera, within your organs, it's the same reaction. Like my body cannot tell the difference. Panic registers as panic. So if you are being chased by a dog and you're panicking, and then let's just say a year later you have a flashback to that very moment, it's gonna feel the same. Like your brain cannot distinguish reality from not reality from fiction, but like it can't distinguish a flashback from reality. So if you're having a flashback, you feel exactly the same as you felt in that moment. You get angry, you get hot, you get sweaty, you get nervous, you get drained, you start hyperventilating, you start clenching, you start feeling crazy, you start freaking out, you start like trying to defend yourself, but nobody's listening and nothing can hear you. And it feels exactly the same. Your body goes into like some type of stress. Your body goes into this like stress shock where it's freaking out. I start having a blatant panic. I start having like a blatant panic attack. I'm sorry, I'm like stuttering. But yeah, like your body cannot tell the difference. Your brain cannot tell the difference. It's registering it as stress and it's like freaking out. And you need to understand that when you have these intrusive thoughts, it's not just an intrusive thought. It's like actually your body thinking the same thing is happening over again. And that causes a lot of stress, which will wear on you over time, which will eventually kill you and will eventually like lead to further health complications. I was kind of extreme. I was like, it'll kill you. But it definitely does shave years off of your life. And so in a separate video, I'm going to go into detail on how to handle this. In this video, I always like to kind of explain what something means and kind of give a few examples, and then later on go into like how we can kind of deal with it. I'm going to take a sip of tea. Let me know if you guys like me sipping tea in a video. I just kind of like, I don't know. I think it just kind of makes it more casual. I just want to have a more laid back format for a few of my videos in this specific series, not in general. But yeah, like, I hope people can find these videos helpful when they're like working in an office. Just kind of turn it on and like relax, and I don't know. But I want to make this first half, and this is with a lot of my videos anyways, the first half is going to be about kind of defining the thing, and the second half is what you can do to navigate the thing. And so I'll continue this into a part 2. I hate to say that, but I do everything into a part 2, but that's fine. But yeah, let me know how you guys like this format. I don't know if it was much different besides me stopping and slurping tea. But yeah, let me know what you think. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. Bye.